So, since there's no WPT crew, I don't have to do the standard shtick. I will introduce myself because favorite thing I get to do. And as I get to point out, I never screw up the biography when it's mine. I was born in Dixon, Illinois. Went to high school in Dixon, Illinois. Went to undergrad at UW-Platteville and studied biology, which is the study of the bile duct. And then I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana for 2 years to get my master's in plant pathology. And then I came here from 82 to 85 to get a PhD in plant pathology and plant virology. I postdoced at agrogenetics on the east side of town till August of 86. I was at Northern Illinois University for 5 years. And then on June 3rd, it was a Monday, I came here and started in 1991, June 3rd, 1991. And I've been here ever since, except for 2 stints in Washington, one 2000, 2001 when I was a Congressional Science Fellow, and then November of 8 to August of 10 when I wrote speeches for the director of the National Science Foundation. I work for the UW Biotechnology Center. I also work for UW Extension Cooperative Extension in the Family Living Program. Yay. Nailed it. Okay, does everybody know where this is? That's the coal center. They're going to change over to natural gas. So that's my son and his buddies this past Saturday night. And what do they do very well in athletics? Share their history. Do we have anything like this in the sciences?
Yeah.
Where? You've seen the lectures. Do we have an extensive set of exhibits on campus, all in nice?
Geology museum.
Yeah, here's a little bit. Yeah. Is it nearly as comprehensive as this is?
Well, they don't sell 17,000 tickets.
All right, you can all go to Washburn Observatory. Yeah, good point. They're a big enterprise. It's $100 million a year. That's 10%. That's 1/10 the size of the whole research budget at this place. So athletics is big, but they recognize how important sharing their history is, going back as far as they can. This was the 50s. If you keep going this way, there's something that goes back to the 1890s. Okay. So this is my way of crediting athletics, both at the Cole Center and at Camp Randall. They do a great job of celebrating history. So we're going to be here to talk about X marks the spot on the trail of great discoveries here at UW-Madison. I'd like to thank Dave Nelson. Hey, Dave. And Dave will say, that's one of my pictures when I show one of his pictures. And you also might want to talk to Dave about his course on groundbreaking research in CALS. It's a seminar. It'll be here in the fall, and I hope many of you will consider participating in that. So we're going to do a lot of maps tonight. Biotechnology, genetic mapping, and genomic sequencing give you a bird's eye view of what you're trying to work with. So I'm going to use that as a metaphor for what we're doing here. Maps can provide insights into the sagas of discoveries and of the discoverers here on campus. I hope it does something that Wisconsin takes a great deal of pride in, and that is it helps give you a sense of place, and a sense of place over time. And as Daniel Einstein pointed out, Daniel's here, thanks for coming. How long have people been living continuously here? We have a historical record of continuous human habitation on this isthmus, 12, 13, 14,000 years. There's not very many places in the world that can make that claim. So let's start. This is a political map of Wisconsin, but it also shows some really interesting things like, whoa, what are the Dakota Sioux doing here in Wisconsin? I thought they were in the Dakotas. And what are the Potawatomi doing so far north? I thought they were down here. So the maps and shifts aren't just for European settlement, but also where the First Nations lived. Here's a map from the 1820s. This is a trek of a gentleman who did an overland route all the way around through here. He's expeditioning for mines. But where did he come pretty close to? Us. So this is the portage here from the Fox River over into the Wisconsin River. Here's a map from 1881. It doesn't show up as well as I was hoping it would. But the key thing is, do you see the interstate highways? Yes, you do. And what are they called? Railroads. No. What are the interstate highways in 1881? Railroads. So that previous map, what was the interstate highway? Rivers. 1881, what's the interstate highway? Railroad. And that's a big deal for this campus because I could take a baseball and throw it maybe 5 or 6 times and hit an active railroad, which is a huge deal for this campus. Okay.
Is your microphone on?
No. God, I've only been doing this for 10 years. It is on.
It is.
God. Is that any better? Yes? No? Oh, God. Okay. I will try to hold it like this. I didn't think about not wearing a collar. Okay. So if you want to get from Madison up north, if you want to get from Ashland, there's a lot of trains coming down from Ashland and around here. 1881. How big was the University of Wisconsin in 1881? Not very. How much research did we do? Almost none. What year did the Washburn Observatory open? 1881. It was the first major research entity on campus. And supposedly, one of the stipulations of Washburn's gift was that it would also be open on a regular basis for public viewing, like tonight. Okay? Ooh, here we go. 1875. One building, North Hall, another building, South Hall. What was University Hall, now called Bascom Hall. Orchard. This is the university farm. It's even called an experimental farm. But I don't know how much experiments they were doing in 1872, the way we do experiments now. That's a very interesting transition to talk about. Okay. Does that look a little familiar? So we're going to see a lot of this. This is one of Dave's slides. University Hall with the dome, because it's before 1916. North Hall, I can see John Muir in there now. South Hall, no other halls. So I think this is even earlier than the 1880 map. Dave, do you remember what year this was? You could believe that, or you could believe that that's the number, the accession number. I know, I thought, oh, 1885, but it doesn't make sense because in 1885, what would be over here? The crumbling remains of burnt down Science Hall. Okay. Plus, there's another picture from Dave, and it's got the very same thing, only it's a bigger number, and it's beyond 2016.
Are those buildings campus properties, or they were house residences that were?
These guys?
Yeah,
I am guessing they're private.
so that's how it was.
Yeah, it was a very simple thing. I grew up on College Avenue in Dixon, Illinois, with a college that started at about this, well, a little later than this, 1882, 1883, built the same way. The main building in the middle, left, right, had 4,000 students in the 1890s. And then it collapsed. It's a casket factory now.
There were a number of private buildings actually down in that area.
Oh, really? And then the university just kept
They kept
Oh, thanks.
Damn university. Okay, this is where I got to start depending on Jim Feldman. New Science Hall or Old Science Hall? New Science Hall. This is one of our 4 National Historic Landmarks on campus. There's another one, North Hall. This is Old Chemical Engineering, got torn down for L&C White. Can't see it right behind in there, but one of those buildings right back in there might be Radio Hall. how long we've been doing radio at the University of Wisconsin? 99 years. I think there's a song that goes like that, isn't there? Is this our church on campus? Is that a church? No. We have been non-sectarian since this place started. I don't think this place has ever had chapel. And that is a music hall. I think that's old Chadbourne. You don't see the law school there or anything yet. Just to give you an idea of where we are. Now in 1887, what was this building called? Ag Hall. And why was it called Ag Hall? Because this little thing called the Morrill Act, which is my second favorite law. What's my most favorite law?
Immoral.
The Immoral Act. Thank you very much. God, it's so easy, isn't it? Okay. And the Morrill Act set up land-grant universities. They were liberal arts schools, but they also included instruction in agriculture and mechanic arts, and it was 1862 when it was passed, so what did they require? Military tactics. That was Ag Hall. In 1888, a guy by the name of Stephen Babcock came here. Where did he work? Where did he invent the Babcock milk fat test? Why didn't he invent it in Ag Hall? It wasn't there yet. So this is one of the fun things about knowing the sequence, or having maps over time, is you can figure out where things might have happened. You can know where they didn't happen for sure. Okay. Oh, and here's one of Dave's slides. So here we go. Hatch Act of 1887. There are two Hatch Acts. Here, whenever we refer to a Hatch Act, it's the one that deals with regular, annual, federal funding to ag experiment stations. And in our case, our ag experiment station is with the university. Are all of them? No. What's the longest running federal funding for research to U.S. universities? Hatch Act, 1887. If anybody knows of anything earlier than that, please let me know. $15,000 in 1887. Different states got different amounts depending on their population. Very cool map. 1900, you won't be able to read it. It's as good as I could get. E.A. Berg, director of the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey. Done by students from the classes of 1897, 1898, 1899, and 1900. Benthic, and look at all the wetlands. Ooh, and here's our favorite university right here. And look at how far west it goes. In 1900, what did we have here? Hiram Smith, F.H. King, Ag Bulletin. We also had this wonderful little building right here, which is our third National Historic Landmark. The UW Dairy Barn was built in 1898. What was the west edge of the city of Madison? The university. What was the west edge of the university? The agriculture experiment grounds. Okay. Where was Middleton? Out here on this railroad, 6 miles west of town. I grew up around railroads. There was a railroad in the block that I grew up in. There was a railroad in the next block. It was the Illinois Central. This is the Illinois Central right here, coming out this way. This is the one that's still active. That's the one that came in about 1857. And that's a very big deal because that's the one that's still active, and that's why the State Fairgrounds used to be at Camp Randall. And why is Camp Randall Camp Randall? Civil War. Where are you going to call out the Wisconsin militia? One of the places you're going to call out is a place that's right next to the interstate highway and has a big campground where several thousand people can live along with their animals in close quarters for several weeks at a time. So that's 1900. Whoa, this is a map you can't see. And It's from 1901, 1902. It's U.S. Geological Survey. In other words, they took the stuff that Berg sent them and made this beautiful map. And this is a different version of it. And I made some blow-ups of this. Is this starting to come in? Ask yourself, this is 1904. This is what the university looked like when who was president? Okay. When who was UW president? You can tell how provincial my thinking is. Okay, look at this. Whoa! I bike right through here every day. That's wetlands. This is all wetlands. This is going to be developed into a huge railroad yard. There is Camp Randall football stadium. And which way is it running? East and west. Holy cow. Now if that's Camp Randall, what's that right there? That's what we call Chamberlain Hall right now. And there's Ag Hall. There's the other 3 clusters of buildings there. Okay. Let's see if we can see that any better. Okay, it gets fuzzy, but at least you can start seeing it. So, if you want to know what the university looked like in 1904 when Charles Van Hise was president, or 1905 in February when he gave the "I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every family of the state," this is what it looks like. Where's Regent Street? This is a very wet place. I hadn't realized that. And further up close. This is one I like also. So this is my neighborhood right here. There's Bear Mound. My first house is right there. My second house is right there. And my third house is right there. I kind of like the neighborhood, so I haven't moved very far. You could take a streetcar named right here. Okay. What year? The year 55,540. This is when I went, oh, that wasn't from 1885. What year? 10. What's this? Ag Hall, Washburn University. Look at this road up through here, right through the Indian mounds. Portcullis, that isn't there anymore. Hiram Smith, that's gone. And behind it is going to be F.H. King and Ag Bulletin. What's this? Ag Engineering. See that wagon wheel window? So this is the start of Henry Mall. What are all these things in here? Hoovervilles. Okay, so look at how urban all this stuff, not urban, how it's all private. Residential, thank you. It's called houses, Tom, thank you. Okay. Which one's this right here? Genetics. And right there, 40 years later, a guy by the name of Joshua Letterberg is going to have his lab in the basement of that building. Which way is it running? East-west. What's this thing right here? We play baseball at the University of Wisconsin? Okay. What is this thing around here? Yep. Which of these stands fell down? So one of these stands collapsed. Does anybody remember? I don't. And that's, this is around the year 51,853. Soon thereafter, 1917 is when the new Camp Randall Stadium opened, and it's down here, and it runs north and south. I'm not sure, and I can't tell, but this looks a lot like a cornfield to me. Isn't that amazing? And this is Breeze Terrace, and these are all the houses that go, God, we got a beautiful view in the morning. There's a collection on campus, or on the geography website of these really cool maps. This is from 1938. It was put together by the alumni, the Female Alumni Club of Chicago, for its student fund. And it starts giving you an idea of, this is a campus that I recognize.
What was the date of that?
1938, I think. Now, this is a celebratory happy map. You can get around with it, but it's really designed to give you some warm fuzzies. What are they celebrating? Ooh, 1904. Because when was our first commencement? Apparently 1854. Other things they're very pleased with, and whoa, here's a big one right there. And here's Professor Babcock's milk fat test machine. This has been lost to history, but you can find it in the lobby of Babcock Hall. Nobody laughed at that one. Okay. This is amazing to me. This is one of the things that really got me going the first time I walked into Babcock Hall and saw that thing there. And the copper lid is still there. Okay. John Muir's clock, where's that? Yep. The Historical Society. Where's Spirit of St. Louis? Smithsonian on the Mall. Who flew it? Who dropped out of the University of Wisconsin? I don't know. This guy and this guy both did. Okay? So we have better dropouts than we have graduates. I can attest to that because I'm a graduate. Ooh, what's this? Serum plant. What's this up here? You can't see it, so I got to show you. There's the Dairy Barns. Genetics Barn, which is all gone. Kleinmetz Hall. And one thing you don't see in here is the railroad, which is weird. I don't know why, but they didn't put it in there. Here's a close-up. Not only is there their serum plant, but there's this thing you can almost make out called tobacco shed. Very big deal, because we don't think of Wisconsin as a tobacco growing area, but if you're from Edgerton or Viroqua, big deal. And what did Folke Skoog work on? Tobacco. And who first successfully grew plants from protoplasts? Folke Skoog and Miyashige. And what were they working on? Tobacco. I got my PhD here in 1985 working on tobacco mosaic virus. What's that?
I hope you didn't smoke.
I chewed, but I didn't swallow. These are all gone. This is still here. That's there. That's all gone. This has been moved. What's interesting about this with trying to figure out X marks the spot is, first of all, most of the people who did this stuff are gone. Second of all, most of them didn't say, oh, this is exactly where I did the work. And the third thing is, this place changes. So it's not an easy task. Ask Dave Nelson, who has written a book on the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, the history of it. Oh, no, you did biochem. John did the college. Okay. So now, here we go. Where are we right now? The red dot marks the spot. So that's University High School. That's the nurses' dormitory. When did that get torn down? 2002, to make way for the addition that's on our building. What's this? Yes. Well, look what it's called. Wisconsin General Hospital. Where's the university? It's not there. It is the University Hospital, but it wasn't called UW Hospital. What's the Service Memorial Institute? That's the home to the School of Medicine, the medical school at that time. What's this right here? The Bradley Memorial, built in 1919, according to Jim Feldman, as a memorial to a young girl in the Bradley family who had died. This is the orthopedic hospital. It's now nutritional sciences. One time that was also the what's the name of the Kennedy brother, the oldest one that died in World War II? Joseph Jr. Laboratories, which became the Wasteman Institute, which is way out here now. Why did you have an orthopedic hospital? Poliomyelitis. Anybody remember polio? Yeah, you're the last generation that's going to remember polio. I barely remember it. They made me take this thing in my arm. You know the little people that have the little circles in their arm? And then the next year they made me Really? Wow. I stand corrected.
It wasn't injection for polio, but it was really a scar. It was this smallpox. They fitted into like.
I can't make up anything with you guys. So, I did get an injection because I was born in 57. I think the Sabin was first, and that was 54. Salk was first? Okay. Just making this stuff up. Okay. But the big deal is you had to have entire hospitals to help people. And everybody thinks it's only young people, but who had polio? FDR. Okay. Here's a big thing for me. There's the extension building in home ec. There's that. Here's Hiram Smith. There's the greenhouse. There's this. And, ooh, we've added on the horticulture building, ag engineering, genetics, agriculture chemistry, and since this is 1940, or is it 1939 or 38? This, I don't think has got the extra labs on here yet. I think maybe they did build, I can't tell if that's the extra lab, but the addition went on, it opened in 1939. Entomology, yeah, that's all gone, because entomology is now in Russell Labs. So this is also the building where in 41, 42, John Stewart Curry did the murals. Okay. So here we are in 1940. Carillon, beautiful Muir Woods, and you can see the outline for the social studies building. Right there, social sciences, thank you. North Hall, almost South Hall, Berg Hall without the addition. Chamberlain started like this, and they added and added and added. Sterling, you're going to add another chunk onto Sterling Hall here. Beautiful panorama here. Vilas Hall will go there eventually. Can somebody tell me where Wharf was? Not Wharf, excuse me, McArdle? Was it in this part here or here? But this is the hospital, and you can see they haven't added on the esplanade there. Here is the nurses building, nurses dorm. That I think is Uni High. Yep, Wisconsin High School, excuse me. Nothing in here. And there's the addition on biochemistry, agricultural chemistry. So we've got these things, space for Bach labs and more here going on here. There's Moore Hall and Horticulture Hall, experimental gardens, Babcock Gardens, the President's house. Maybe it was the Dean's house still, but I think soon there was the President's house. The Lakeshore dorms. Okay, and what was the west edge of Madison? The University of Wisconsin. Yeah, look at this. There's hardly anything out here. Picnic Point in 1940, pretty sparse. Okay.
Moving down to Monroe Street, though, it wasn't going west there.
Oh yeah, I'm just, yeah, it's starting to fill in. Okay, experimental plots. Campus Drive is not here. There's 1940 era Camp Randall. It's an odd looking thing, engineering. Forest Products Lab, had they moved it down to, can't remember when the Forest Products Lab moved. So this is the Warfarin era, 33 to 50, that kind of thing. This is a bullet that was dodged. Look where they put agriculture. Look where the medical school is. This is the only university that I know of where the medical school and the ag school are not only in the same town, unlike the University of Illinois and the University of Minnesota. They're all on the same campus. They're right next to each other, and they share buildings. What buildings do the ag school and the medical school share? This one, biochemical sciences across the way, and microbial sciences building. Please let me know of any other university where 3 juggernaut life sciences departments share buildings the way we do here. That synergy is one of the hallmarks of this place. This you won't be able to see very well, but this is another map right after World War II. It's one of those decorative, happy maps. It's got our presidents here. You can see Teddy Roosevelt and Taft. Never mind. Never mind, I blew it. Okay? This is the best of this one I could find online, and it's crappy, but I just wanted to show you where you're still making these decorative bird's eye view maps of campus. And then we started doing this. Is this a satellite view or a bird's eye view? It's a bird's eye view. This is completely around. This is 1951. This is the campus as my dad knew it in the 5 summers he spent here from 1951 to 1955. He was a Marquette alum. He's the only guy I ever met who didn't like this campus. It's like, what? And he's going, no, it's a concrete campus. You're calling the University of Wisconsin-Madison a concrete campus? And you went to Marquette? Whoa. But it was weird. So he lived over here on Cronsage for 5 summers, including in the summer of 1955 with my mom, his wife at the time. They were married for like 55 years. And my mom was heavy with child. Okay, so my brother was born in November of 1955, and so I'm very fond of Cronsage Hall. Here's a cool thing. I'm going to do this a couple of times. Next map. And this is, oh, I can't remember, 60? Look at the different, oh. I'm going to try to go backwards, sorry about that. Here's this map in blue. Here's the same map in red. But look at some of the things that are changing. Red, blue. So look at the biochemistry edition. If you can look right here, watch what happens. Boom, an addition. Look right here in the newer map and see what's there. It's not there now, but it's about to be when you go like this. There are rail lines through here. There are rail lines going up into here and here. Here's Little Street. And there's all kinds of rail lines here. When I went to the University of Illinois in 1979, they still had railroads going through their campus. All that stuff is gone now. Here, we still have railroads. At Champaign, it's all gone. Okay. Henry Mall, where we are right now. Looks like the Wisconsin State Laboratory of Hygiene. Greenhouses. Babcock Hall. Some stuff here. I'm going to go back here because look what happens. What is this in preparation for? See this stuff here and some of this stuff? How do you get from here to Middleton? Slowly. How do you get from here to Middleton?
Oh, Campus Drive.
Campus Drive. And what isn't there now? Campus Drive. So Campus Drive did some amazing things for this place as far as getting east and west. 1962. Look at how far To the south, that railroad is, because what are they going to do? They're going to move it all to the north to make room for Campus Drive. But the cool thing about this is, right here where we are is all pretty set. This has a lot of changes in the next few years. These are the university maps. What's the T stand for? Permanent.
They were pretty permanent temporary buildings.
Okay. This is the last one that I remember going down. Here they are from World War II. And then, miracle of miracles, what did they put on the map? VP. What did they forget? I. VP stands for visitor parking. So this is 1962. We have one Nobel Prize in 1958 for work done in that building. We're about to have one in 1968 for work either done in this building or over here in next door to here at the Enzyme Institute. Dave, where did Krana do his work? Did he do it both?
Biochemistry, ended up in the Enzyme Institute.
Okay. God, I love being right. It's such a new experience. Okay. There is no McArdle Labs building as we know it now. McArdle Labs, I think, was up in this corner. If somebody can correct me on that, that'd be great. But that's 62. When did Howard Temin come? I think it was 1960 or 61. Just to show you that you can really make worser maps, there you go. What's in here? You can't see it, but in here is Newman Lumen, which we no longer use. You'll see another Newman Lumen. Here's all the railroads I was talking about before. Look at this. Okay. Here's the part of campus that I spend most of my attention on. Is there a Union South? Is there a Atmospheric, Oceanic, and Space Sciences? No. This is 1964. But this is pretty much what the Vietnam era is going to look like. There's going to be some new buildings down here and such. And there is no shortage of building between 64 and, say, 67. But this is what things were still looking like.
Yeah, the computer science building
Was already built there? Good.
as well as WCER.
Yep. And then this is not yet shown. That's still, Campus Drive isn't there. Visitor parking. And why do we got to have visitor parking? This. I cannot figure out where the hundreds of people who must have come here to visit their loved ones parked. Some things never change. Never.
My dad was in the hospital when everyone was parking on Campus Drive.
Okay, that's good. Just to show you that things can get worse in cartographical art, this is 1976. So somewhere in there, Campus Drive got built. Somewhere in there, they decided we're going to put this 1.2 million square foot building on this map in 1976, even though it didn't open until 1979. And here is McArdle, Nielsen. That's all changed around. Forest Products Lab. Okay. This is the start of the Go West, Young Man, Go West. Who's Frederick Jackson Turner? What did he come up with? And one of the things about the frontier hypothesis or the manifest destiny idea is this campus is a lot like the United States. It started out here on the eastern seaboard with a couple little buildings. Let me see if I can get them right. That one, and that one. It went this way, and then it went this way, and then it leapt way over here. And now what are we doing? Filling in. Where did the ag experiment stations used to be? All this stuff in here. If you wanted to come to this campus to see Ag Research in Action, could you? And they did. This is where farm technology days used to be until about 1955. And then they moved it off campus. And some people think we never recovered from that politically. Okay. So this is what I mean by how this place has grown and spread and leapt and backfilled. This is an interesting map to me because it's got a 1980 map on it, but it's overlaid with a ghost map of 1959. This is the first time I've seen actual boundaries of laid out, kind of like a planning map. Now we're back to a bird's eye view. This is a map. We went from a black and white map when I came here in 1991 to this colorful map. This went up to about 2005. How can I tell it went up to about 2005? Well, I can read the notes. And what's this right here? That's the addition to this building, and it opened in 2004. You can also see the 1998 addition or Biochemistry Building. What's this? Out here, this here, and that. And this is starting. They're starting to show that. That would be the University of Wisconsin Children's Hospital. Oh, no, wait a minute. We sold that for $10 million. Okay. At least we're starting to do a better job of showing where visitor parking should be. Parking becomes a much bigger part of these maps as the place gets more and more congested. Now we're back not to a bird's eye view, but from 2006 on, we're doing a satellite view. And this is what the map looks like. And I think you have a map in your hands that's going to look very similar. Oh, I got a couple more here. This was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Many of the things that it projected have happened. Some are yet to happen. Something in here is being built for parking. What's that? Yeah, that's a new Union South. What's this? Wisconsin Institutes for Discovery, Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Which ones have been built? Phase 1. Did Union South end up looking like that? No, but close enough. This is a planning map. Okay. That's what you have in your hand. It's brand new. It even smells new. I love paper maps, and I'd like to thank the Transportation Services folks for sending us 4 of these things. It was great. I very much appreciate it because there's nothing like having real paper in your hand. Absolutely. Okay. They sent me these. So if you want to know where did one of the first big achievements in research at this place, at least in the life sciences, with this Babcock milk fat test. If you had to put an X on, marks the spot on this map, where would you put it? South Hall. If you wanted to know where the single grain feeding study was done, where would you put that? The UW Dairy Barn, not the current Dairy Cattle Center, but the Dairy Barn. So we're going to go through some of these things, and you can look and find where some of these places are, and you can mark them on the map as you would like. This is another similar map, except for it's for West Campus, showing parking and how things look today. Okay. So before we go through and mark all the X's, I'd like you to think about this line of time. Madison chosen as capital, statehood, university. This railroad comes through on its way to Prairie du Chien. The Morrill Act, the Ag Experiment Station opened, as did the School of Pharmacy. Both of those were in Ag Hall. And the Hatch Act. Here are some things that we're pretty proud of here, and this gets us up to about 1945. One of the challenges of this is how do we do X marks the spot for things that aren't quite that old? So here's Babcock, probably in the late 20s, Dave. He died in 33, something like that.
Late 20.
Yep. I believe this is going to be in Biochemistry Building, ag chemistry. Okay. They had a big shebang. They brought back President Chamberlain and had Dean Henry and Dean Russell, and I think this is when those pictures were taken. And you can still go and see this thing and this thing at Babcock Hall, which was built in 1950. One of the great things that has happened over the time that I've been here, when I first came here in 1982, there were no brass plaques to speak of, and now there are. And that's a big deal because you'll see students reading them. I always take folks to them, and this is hard. This is hard to come up with the words in here, what they mean, not leaving people out that should be in. Is it fair to say, Dave, that your colleagues in CALS labored over this?
I don't actually know if they did.
Okay, well, that's helpful. I did. I thought I'd talk to you about that, and you said it was really controversial. But this is the problem with having your source in the audience. Okay, so here's Elmer McCollum. And he was here until about 1918, then went to Johns Hopkins. And he was instrumental in first doing with E.V. Hart and Babcock the single grain feeding test that was done at the UW Dairy Barn. Showed there's something vital that's missing in wheat that's present in corn. And they did this with cows. What did they then switch to? Administrators. Oh, I used the wrong word. That must be the lead word. Okay? And sometime have Dave tell you the story about how controversial it was to use ag experiment station money to buy and feed rats, because rats are the farmer's enemy. And I have this here in honor of Senator Proxmire. And I was actually being serious there. It's a great irony to me, being a person from Illinois, which our bread and butter is graft and corruption, to be here in Wisconsin and have a senator who made his mark largely on the Golden Fleece Award, and yet using model organisms is something tremendous that speeds biological research and decreases its cost. This is, if we don't have the oldest continuous rat research colony in the country, we have one of the oldest, and it was a controversial, daring thing to do, and it's still pretty impressive. And what did they use to discover vitamin A? Rats. What you don't see here is the name of the other co-author on this paper, and there were only 2 authors on this paper that came out in July of 1913. The other author was Marguerite Davis from Racine, Wisconsin. And this is one of the problems with doing X marks the spot, is how do you include people that ought to be included, and sometimes don't get the shrift. They just get the shaft. This is pretty amazing because I had no idea as a graduate student here. If you asked me where were vitamins discovered, I would have gone, well, I don't know. I know vitamin D was discovered here, except it wasn't. And so this is another thing about doing these kinds of tours, is that people come knowing they think they know certain stuff, only what they know just isn't shown. So here's Steenbach, who was contemporary with Elmer McCollum. What's this down here? Rats. What's this? What's that? What's that? Dave, if this isn't accurate, don't say it's not accurate, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Dave took me up to the attic in biochemistry before the renovation, and took me to the little hut that was up there at that time. And you walked in there, and that was still on the wall. This was still there. It's amazing. Why was he doing this stuff up in an attic in the fall of 1923? Because he was shining ultraviolet light to see if it would activate an anti-rickets, activate a precursor of vitamin D. And what makes ultraviolet light? This lamp and the sun. So here's another challenge. If you go out and ask 100 people from Wisconsin where vitamin D was discovered, they'll say at the University of Wisconsin, except for I don't know that it was. What was discovered was a way to use, or as they say here, to produce vitamin D. And the way to do it was to shine a certain type of ultraviolet light either on an animal or even on the foodstuffs that you then fed to animals. And that was not only a pretty amazing discovery, it was an invention. It was an invention that was patentable. The patent was valuable and led to a big royalty stream, $900,000 from Quaker Oats in the mid-1920s, and led to the establishment of the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. Big deal. Very big deal. Huge deal. And yet, if you go ask people where was vitamin D discovered, they'll say here.
Why didn't Babcock do that?
Why didn't Babcock patent?
Yeah.
He deliberately didn't do it because he thought it belonged to the public to discover. He later regretted it.
And my understanding is that he regretted it because he could no longer control when people used his name. There's a couple of reasons to patent something, or even in his case to copyright it. When you have the intellectual property, you can control who uses it. You don't necessarily have to charge them to use it, but if they abuse it, you can go after them. And Babcock didn't have any legal recourse when people were misusing his name or his test. And here's Tom's dad. Warfarin as a rodenticide, starting in 1933 was the research. I think this is a 22 to 23 year saga because Eisenhower had his heart attack in mid-50s, late 50s. And who was the first person to get warfarin as a blood thinner? I think it was President Eisenhower. I'd like to see the IRB on that today. Although I can think of somebody presidential I'd like to give some warfarin. Okay. So here's this wonderful brass plaque, and the only reason that we were able to do a 70th anniversary of the Warfarin saga was because this plaque was up, and I could go read it, and I knew that 2013 was going to be it, and that's why Tom and Dave gave their talk here 3 years ago on that. Yeah, wasn't it 3 years ago? 2013? 75th anniversary, 2008. This is great having people that are going to correct me. Could you wait till I'm right to correct me, and then I can... So here we go. Joshua Lederberg, this is the first of the 4 Nobel Prizes. This plaque is right across the street, right across Henry Mall. Who's missing from a mention here? His wife. If you want to read a very interesting website, read the website dedicated to Lederberg's wife. Edith? Esther, thank you. Esther Lederberg. And they eventually divorced. But this is another difficulty with doing brass or bronze plaques, is who you leave on, who you leave off, and how do you tell a robust, complete story. Corona, 1968. This is pretty amazing to me. He won in 1968, and then I think he synthesized a gene in 1970, and then he went to MIT. Right across the street and at the Enzyme Institute. Howard Temin, McArdle Labs, Started in the old McArdle labs, then went to the McArdle labs here. I believe Howard Temin died in 1993. He won the Nobel Prize in 1975. He taught me virology in 1982. Luckily, there were other students. Oliver Smithies. Oh, by the way, darn it. Why is there no brass plaque for Howard Temin? He got the bike trail. Yeah. You only get one piece of brass on this campus. Okay? This is why. What's the McArdle labs in? The School of Medicine and Public Health, the medical school. So this is Oliver Smithies. And he left here in 1988 to go to the University of North Carolina, but he was here from about 1960 to 1988, and he developed, among other things, KOs, knockout mice, and won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2007. I just took this afternoon with the glinting sun over my shoulder. One of the things that's remarkable about this place is this constellation. I use Constellation for two purposes. One is to talk about the Constellation science venues on campus, but also this pretty remarkable set of institutions that help make this place a pretty remarkable place. Not only for Madison and Dane County, but for the state of Wisconsin and for the United States. And there have been at least two people that stood at this lectern. Both of them were NSF career awardees. It was 4 years ago. And I asked them after reading their biographies, like, geez, with your background, you could have gone anywhere. Why did you come here? And that's why. They said, people collaborate here. There's another guy in the room that could attest to that, and that's Dave Nelson. He was at Harvard, he was at Stanford, and he came here, and Dave contends that this is one of the most collaborative places that he's aware of. Can you say yes to that one?
I would, yes.
Thank you. Well, my career as a prosecutor almost ended there. And that's why this is one of the lines that I give when I do the X marks the spot. I show the people the silos. The only other campus I know that's really proud of its cows is Cambridge. And the cows are on the backs at Cambridge in Britain. But there's only like 4 or 5 of them, and they're steers. We have about 84 cows living on this campus. You can smell them. They're about 4 blocks away. They get milk twice a day. And there are many silos on this campus, and every one of them is full of silage. So when people talk about silo effects and stuff, it's like, okay, but this place does a really good job of being interdisciplinary. And part of it is the lay of the land. So I started with this, and like I say, I want to give athletics a lot of credit. They do a great job. I think we could do a great job in the sciences. And as Indiana Jones said, remember X never, ever marks the spot. And that's about 50 yards from where I'm standing right now. And that is the College of Agriculture building, otherwise known as Ag Hall. So I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I'd be delighted to start out in the atrium. We can go do a little tour, as I promised. We can go out and stand on the X. Dave is willing to go out and stand on the X and talk to you about what he knows. Tom Link is here to talk to you about what his dad did. Daniel Einstein is here, and if they can't remember anything, I'll make it up. And we got Jim Feldman here and his book. I think that's pretty good stuff. Thank you very much for coming. I also have available these guys, and I'd be delighted to get any suggestions that you might have on how to make these tours better. Questions, comments? Why did I make so many mistakes? Because I've been at it so long. Jim.
Did you know that the round silo was developed here?
Did I know that the round silo was developed here?
Franklin King?
That's another tough one. Because the Society of Ag Engineers gives credit down at Fort Atkinson.
What do they know?
What do they know? Is that what you said? What do they know? I don't know. I just cited my source. And it's a tough one because silos were originally bunkers and then they went vertical, but they were rectangular solids. And what do rectangular solids have? Corners. And what do corners allow? Rot, because of the air. So round silos are a pretty darn amazing thing. A lot of people, now F.H. King was involved with the development of the round silo, but as far as the oldest or the first round silo, it's not the 1898 dairy barn one. I don't have any evidence that that's the first. It's certainly the prettiest one, and I hope that building doesn't fall down. I don't think silo will fall down for a while. Sandy.
Why did Wisconsin end up with binder tobacco?
Why did Wisconsin end up with binder tobacco? I don't know. Better quality farther north. I know the diseases are more prevalent in the warmer, wetter stuff further south. And plus, she says we don't have the insect pressure. So I don't know, but those are good questions. Other things? Yes?
Who is McArdle?
Who is McArdle?
Yeah.
Who here can tell me who McArdle was? McArdle is a donor who helped set up the cancer research lab. Other questions? Yes?
Is there a catalog online of all those brass markers indicating where they are and maybe what time to do them?
Yes. Is there a catalog online of all those brass markers? That there is. I don't think the Oliver Smithies one is because that was put up after he won the Nobel Prize in 2007. Ken Smith, who worked here at the Biotech Center and who's very influential in many of the ideas that I talk about when I say that campus ought to be a destination for exploration, that's actually Ken Smith's line. And he's the one that went around and made the original ones when he worked here at the Biotech Center. But I can't remember when Ken stopped working here. It would have been like 2006 or 2007. Say again?
What age, what area would that be located?
I don't know. I'd have to, right now, I just go on and Google stuff anymore. Daniel, I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah, I thought I knew something.
I'm infectious. Oh my God.
I have a complete list of both the text and the location map for both the grouping of brass plaques on Bascom Hill and the one that is focused on the Gals campus.
Yeah.
I believe I put it on my website.
Okay.
Either that or it's just on my computer.
So a little bit more about brass plaques. I think they're fabulous. They're also a pitfall. For example, if you go up to Bascom Hill and you read the Wisconsin Idea plaque, there's actually two. One is the brass plaque that stands on a little post and talks about the Wisconsin Idea. The other is the brass plaque that is the gift, I think, of the class of 2012. It's on a big rock on Bascom Hill. The person that spearheaded that asked me, and I said, oh, well, here's the stuff, and here's the quote, and here it is on the university website. And then that darn David Null screwed everything up. Does everybody know who darn David Null is? So he's the university archivist. So what it says on the brass plaque is, I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every home of the state. Charles Van Hise, 1904. The only problem is, he actually said, I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every family of the state. What part of cooperative extension do I work for? Family living. And is there a difference between saying every home in the state versus every family of the state? Oh, and by the way, he gave that speech in February 15th of 1905. So in 2003, I got together with some friends at University Communications, and I said, we need to do a Centennial of the Wisconsin Idea, because on your website it says he gave this talk in 1903. Oh, and then we find out actually it's 1904. Then David Null sends us the PDF of the actual speech, which I've sent out on my little weekly missive on a couple of times. And it's actually February 15th of 1905. And again, this, 1903, 1904, 1905. My dad was a high school history teacher, and that stuff matters, and we're a university, and accuracy matters. And it doesn't mean you can't make mistakes, as I've so eloquently described tonight. But I think you ought to do what you can to correct mistakes. And I've been waiting 6 months for that to be corrected on the University of Wisconsin-Madison website. Okay? Did that answer? Okay. Yes?
There's also a little plaque for the tent colony. I don't know if that...
Oh, the tent colony. Yeah, out on Picnic Point. That whole thing. For those of you that are in the Lakeshore Nature Preserve, man, that place is amazing. And I don't know that brass plaque, but just...
I don't remember exactly what it...
Yeah.
There's something there that it says for the tent colony.
But this place had a certain bucolic aura to it in the turn of the century, 1910, 1920, because you saw there wasn't anything out there. I mean, when you're out at Picnic Point, you're like, wow.
The latest issue of the Wisconsin Historical Society magazine has a section on the history of Picnic Point.
Yeah, and so does On Wisconsin. I don't know if they both do, but On Wisconsin, which is the magazine for alumni and friends of the university, has got that on their cover. And of course, that gets us back to what Daniel has mentioned, and just how, this unbelievable, for me, fact that we have a documented history of continuous human habitation going back 12, 13, 14,000 years. I mean, those folks didn't have to have refrigerators. They just set their beer on the glacier. Okay. If there's not any other, oh yes, Tom.
I have a question. Why are there at least three buildings and a forum named after DeLuca, and you have not mentioned his name?
Oh, why are there 3 or 4 buildings named for DeLuca, and I haven't mentioned his name tonight? It's an oversight on my part. I had only so much time. And I don't know. He's got a brass plaque out there, but it's a new brass plaque. So yeah, I probably should do that. But you can tell almost, with the exception of the Oliver Smithies things, most of my stuff stopped with 68, 75. Hector's a very interesting example, because when did Babcock come here? 1888? And one of his students was this guy named Steenbach. And who was Steenbach's last student? Hector DeLuca. So when Hector DeLuca gives his stories to the Wisconsin Academy or across the street at Discovery, he's standing there, and his academic grandfather came here in 1888. That is amazing, that you can trace with just 2 generations back to the transition of this university from I want to be a Williams College type liberal arts college to we're going to be a research institution, and we're going to be one of the founding members of the American Association of Universities and all that stuff. There's a lot of other people I didn't mention. I think you got a good point that, Hector's up there. And I don't think anybody's made more money for the university than Hector. Okay? All right, thank you very much, and we'll start out here.